Scalar and vector quantities. Scalar quantity is defined as the physical quantity that has only magnitude. For example, speed, temperature, volume, and pressure. Vector quantity. This one has both magnitude and direction, and it is also typically represented by an arrow. For example, displacement, velocity, force, and drag. Okay, now we're going to do some exercise. First, number 1. Which of the following is a scalar quantity? Velocity, time, or force? Yeah, congratulations. Time is the correct answer. The other two are vector quantities.
What are rectangular and polar coordinates? We get the rectangular coordinates from the y and x components. We draw the horizontal line on x and the vertical line of y, and they form a rectangle. That's why they're called rectangular coordinates. When we don't have x and y components, we have to use polar coordinates. Polar coordinates come from the distance of the origin to the point, which is represented with r, and the angle of the diagonal. We use polar coordinates when we are given the vector and the angle of the diagonal with the x-axis. We can change from polar coordinates and to rectangular coordinates and vice versa. This process will be explained in the next few videos.
Hi, today we're going to see how to convert rectangular to polar coordinates. To transform the coordinates of a vector from rectangular to polar coordinates is by using a widely used mathematical tool in the resolution of right triangles that you probably already know. This is the well-known Pythagorean theorem, which states that the sum of the squares of the lengths of the catheti is equal to the squares of the length of the hypotenuse. In the case of right triangles, catheti or legs are either of the sides that form the right angle of the triangle, and the other side, which is the largest of the three, is the hypotenuse. Then, writing expressing the theorem in mathematical terms, we have this formula. Besides, the legs take different names which depend on the angle they form by one of them and the hypotenuse. The adjacent leg is the side that forms an angle with the hypotenuse, while the opposite leg is the side facing that angle. It is very important to know how to identify them.
Hi, today we're going to see how to convert a polar coordinate to a rectangular coordinate. But first of all, what's a polar coordinate and what's a rectangular coordinate? A polar coordinate is a pair of coordinates locating the position of a point in a plane. The first being the length of the straight line, represented with the letter r, connecting to the point to the origin, and the second being the line made by this line with a fixed line. While the rectangular coordinate is a pair of coordinates measured along axes at right angles to one another. This means that it uses values of x and y to show the location of a point. To convert from polar to rectangular, here's what you have to do.
Taking into account that cosine of the angle is equal to x over radius, we get that in order to get the x-coordinate, we multiply the radius times cosine of the angle. And taking in account that sine times the angle is equal to y over radius, we get that to get the y-coordinate, we use the formula of radius times sine of the angle.
Okay, so my name is Philly and I'm going to talk to you about how to add vectors. Okay, so let's suppose that vector A is takes as x 4 and as y minus 2. And let's suppose that vector B takes a 3 as x and y as number 4. After we have the value of those vectors, we need to get how much value will the vector from adding A plus B will be. After we have that, we are going to add a x values and y values, and this will be the resultant.